Imagine waking up one day to find your home slowly disappearing, not because of a war or disaster, but due to the climate change.
We've been reporting extensively on the heat waves that have hit large areas of Europe, the United States, and parts of Asia.
In the south, the searing hot spell has led to severe water shortages. The situation has reached a crisis point in Chennai. This is India's sixth biggest city.
When did summer become a thing of dread? This golden season for many parts of southern Europe has become one of fire and flame.
Nowadays, as we all can feel, the summers are becoming unbearably hot and the sea level are rising. And this is becoming a reality for millions of people all around the globe. But what if it was happening to you? What would you do? Where would you go? Curious? The world is changing and we are not discussing the repercussions. Today we will not talk about floods, global warming or climate change in general. Our focus today is on the domino effect, the scary aftermath of climate change known as climate migration. So what is climate migration? According to UN International Organization for Migration, climate migration is the movement of a person or group of persons who predominantly for reason of sudden or progressive change in the environment due to the climate change are obliged to leave their habitual place or their homes, either temporarily or permanently within state or across the international borders. From the rising tides in the Pacific Islands to intensifying heat waves in the Middle East to Northern America, the impact of climate change are being felt globally. People are becoming to move in response to climate change. As we see a warming planet, shift in the rainfall patterns, and the extreme weather events becoming more frequent, the impacts are not equally distributed. Some regions are hit harder than others, forcing inhabitants to reconsider their way of life and their home. Imagine vast expanses of arid land, once rich and fertile, now barren and inhospitable, due to the climate change only. Let's see the top 5 countries with the highest number of internal displacement due to the disasters in 2022. It were Pakistan, 8.2 million people, Philippines, 5.5 million people, China, 3.6 million people, India, 2.5, Nigeria, 2.4 million. 98% of 32.6 million new internal disaster displacements in 2022 were the results of weather-related hazards such as storms, floods and droughts. Let's talk about the world's largest economy, the United States of America. In 2018, more than 16 million people were displaced by weather-related disasters globally, and 1.2 million of whom lived in the USA only. More Americans have also been moving into the wildland-urban interface, where the danger of wildfires is the highest. If we see from 1990 to 2010, there was a 41% increase in the number of new homes in the WUI, making it the fastest growing land use type in the country, as according to the Radolph paper of 2018. Additionally, 40% of the population of the USA lives in the coastal areas, with over 500,000 square kilometers in the low elevation coastal zone, threatening as many as 43 million people by 2100, as per the prediction of Hoare et al. And Newman et al. In 2020 and 2015 respectively. Cities are already experiencing chronic flooding at high tides, hurricanes, droughts and wildfires. These sudden onset and slow onset disasters are shifting perspectives on where people feel safe and want to live. Sudden onset events are unexpected and occur rapidly, leaving little to no time for people to prepare. For example, hurricane or a flood. These weather-related phenomena can happen quickly and can cause immediate and significant damage, forcing people to leave their homes with little warning. Whereas when one talk about slow onset changes, it happens gradually over a longer period of time. For example, desertification or sea level rise. These processes occur slowly, sometimes over several decades. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina, which killed approximately 971 Louisianians, and caused more than $100 billion in property damage to Louisiana coast. In 2009, the population of Louisiana's capital was still 23% lower before Hurricane Katrina. Likewise, in 2017, Hurricane Maria caused nearly $90 billion in damage to Puerto Rico and killed over 3,000 people. Nearly 250,000 Puerto Ricans fled to Florida, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Illinois, and Massachusetts. Puerto Rico's population is projected to decrease from 3.33 million people in 2017 to 1.6 million people in 2047, representing a nearly 50% decrease in the population over the next 30 years. Imagine this. You are having a quiet evening at home when suddenly a group of unexpected guests show up at your door. They have had to leave their homes quickly due to an unexpected situation. Let's say a burst of water pipe has flooded their house. So they arrive at your doorstep with little or no warning and nowhere else to go. Now apply that to a much larger scale. In November 2018, a huge fire named the Camp Fire destroyed 14,000 homes in Paradise, California. It was like a situation where suddenly thousands of unexpected guests, in this case evacuees, were forced to flee their homes. The majority of these evacuees went to the nearest city, Chico. Just like your home quickly became filled with these guests. Within a few days, nearly 20,000 evacuees and hundreds of emergency responders were staying at the emergency shelters, hotels, rentals, or even camped out in parking lots, trying to find a place to stay. By winter, home sales had doubled. Prices jumped 21%. Even Realtor.com designated Chico the hottest market in the country. Although local businesses benefited from the overnight growth, others struggled to keep up with hiring needs due to the rising rents. Remember the 2019 summers when then PM of Australia, Scott Morrison, was sending selfies of himself on holiday in Hawaii at the time when most of the Australia was burning, which tragically claimed 33 innocent lives, including 9 firefighters, destroyed more than 2,000 homes all around Australia, and an estimated of 10 million hectares of land and national forest, and killed over 1 billion non-human creatures. Australia is particularly susceptible to climate change, and with increasing heat waves, bushfires, and changes in the rainfall patterns, in late February 2022, southeast Queensland started experiencing storms and intense rainfall. It continued for weeks, making its way down to the northern New South Wales. Both regions were impacted by multiple rounds of devastating floods. Tens of thousands of people were evacuated, homes and belongings were destroyed, and communities now face years of rebuilding. Take the case of Pakistan. In 2022, the government estimated that around 33 million people, or about 15% of the population across the country, were affected by the rains and floods, killing at least 1,100 people and destroying thousands of houses, infrastructure, agriculture, land, and livestock. More than 1 million homes have been damaged or destroyed, while at least 5,000 kilometers of roads have been damaged. Floods impacted 2 million acres of crops and killed around 8 lakh livestock across the Pakistan, according to the UN. More than 800 health facilities damaged, of which 180 were completely damaged, leaving millions of people lacking access to the health care and the medical treatment. Now look what's happening in India as of July 2023. It's raining havoc in India. Already more people have died due to the heavy rains over Himachal Pradesh, a northern part of India. The rivers level are at their highest in 45 years in the mid of July due to unusual heavy rains in New Delhi and hilly northern states, forcing the evacuation of hundreds of people as the Yamuna breached its banks, which runs through the India's capital Delhi. Punjab, a western state in India, experienced 20% of the total monsoon rain in just 24 hours. It is the highest rainfall ever in 24-hour experienced by the region. So what is the impact of climate change on migration? The figures are daunting. Just how many people will move because of climate change? Quantifying the exact number is a challenging task, given the complexity of factors that drive migration decisions. However, Some studies give us a glimpse of potential scale. In Nomad Century, a book published last year by Gaia Vince, he wrote if the world grew 4 degrees Celsius hotter by 2100, regions currently inhabited by 3.5 billion people would become uninhabitable. As to catch up you guys, it has already grown 1.2 degrees Celsius hotter since the pre-industrial times of mid-1800s. People often use these extreme predictions for their own political gain. Green groups have cited the threat of billions of climate refugees to lend urgency to calls to curb emissions. People in wealthy countries who prefer their own kind of often use the idea of large group of climate migrants as a reason to make their border rules even tougher. Here some cooler thinking is required. Researchers at the World Bank have a tool called groundswell. This tool helps us guess how big this problem could get. It looks at how things like water availability, farming, and rising seas could make people leave their homes and move to other places. They guess that between 44 million and 216 million people all around the world might have to move within their own countries by 2050 because of the climate change only. Most times when we talk about climate migration, we are thinking about people living because there is not enough water, like when there are droughts or when land turns to desert. But remember, too much water can cause problems too. When the sea level rise, it can also make people leave their homes. This is another big reason why climate migration happens. Let's talk about people living near the beach or where there are lots of rivers. Their worry isn't about having no water, but rather too much of it. And because of the rising sea levels, changes in our climate are causing the sea to rise and floods to happen more often and be more severe. These things are forcing people to leave their homes, with some places becoming impossible to live in. The government and local groups are offering more programs where they pay people to move away from their home that are likely to get flooded. But this strategy has good and bad sides. On one hand, it can help people get out of their dangerous situations. On the other hand, it is a clear sign that some homes are being given up to the sea. Based on 2021 report by the UN agency IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a lot can change between now and 2030. We could build flood defenses, adapt our cities, and ideally our governments could finally take serious actions to hold the climate crisis. But if none of that happens, top 15 cities that could find themselves, or in large part, underwater within a decade are these. Imagine someone moving from Bangladesh to India for a better job, but the place they left in Bangladesh is at high risk from climate change impacts like flooding. Soon their family and friends might also need to leave. The question is, can this person now living in new country help them? Interestingly, most people forced to move because of climate changes won't travel to a new country or a new continent. Research shows that they will probably stay close to the home, maybe in the same country or even in the same region. Moving to another country can be too difficult and expensive, especially for the poorest people. Samantha Stanley and her colleagues did a study where they asked Australians what they thought about resettling 3 groups of people: those displaced from climate change from overseas, those displaced by climate change within Australia, and those displaced by war. What they found was that people are more supportive of helping Australians only. Those displaced within the country due to climate change and those displaced by war. The Australians are less supportive of resettling those coming from the overseas because of the climate change. And this same situation persists all around the globe in the Western world. This situation of climate migration brings both big problem and a chance to do something good. As more people move to cities, we have to make our cities nicer places for everyone to live. This means we have to have a plan, build our cities in a smarter way, focusing on things that will last. This includes building greener buildings, providing good public transports, making sure healthcare is available for everyone, and ensuring all kids get good education. These things are really important if a city is going to be good home for people moving because of climate change. And we know that changing our cities won't be easy or quick, but it's really important for the future of our cities, our communities, and our whole planet. The same groundswell report from World Bank states that the number of people forced to move because of climate change could be reduced by as much as 80% if we make serious efforts to cut down global greenhouse gases. then we could decrease the harsh climate conditions that cause people to leave their home. If we plan properly for each phase of migration, before it happens, during the process, and after people have moved, then we can make sure this shift leads to positive change and progress for everyone involved. If we include plans for climate migration in our strategies for green and resilient development, then we can make sure our cities and communities are prepared and welcoming for those who have to move. And if we invest in learning about why people move because of climate change, by supporting research and having conversation with those affected, then we can create policies that effectively address the issues and support those in need. The story of people moving because of climate change is happening right now, and we have to make sure it's a good story about people being able to adapt and do well together. However, as we have already discussed, moving because of climate change is not easy, and there is no single solution that works for everyone. We have to manage this carefully and with kindness, with laws that protect people's rights and ensure they can get services and opportunities in their new homes. If we don't do this, we risk making inequalities and social conflict worse. Facing climate change, moving could indeed be a powerful way to adapt, but like any tool, how effective it is depends on how we use it.
Worldwide interests. Every interest. Follow here. Subscribe for interesting and full of knowledge videos.